I'm going to make another pun before introducing our wonderful moderator, Mark Blackwell, who will lead us through the conversation on optimizing agriculture that we can all grow together. I cringe as I say it, but I love it. All right, so Mark is a general partner at Builders VC, which focuses on helping founders modernize antiquated industries such as agriculture, healthcare, and real estate. Longtime entrepreneur, operator, and investor, Mark is an alumnus of the C100 48 Hours program back in 2013. He's the founder of GNS3 Technologies, an enterprise networking startup where Mark was the co-founder and COO and subsequently exited to SolarWinds. Prior to GNS3, Mark was an investment manager at Synovus Energy's corporate venture fund, where he led the financing in Hi-Fi Engineering and Skyonic Corporation and was the board observer for both. Mark, I can't wait to bring you up because your bio is exceptional. Mark, thank you for contributing to today's discussion and helping us have a fantastic conversation with ag tech entrepreneurs. It's such an exciting space, and we love having you every time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the invitation today. And it's a bit nostalgic, as you said, being back on this side of the game, having been at 48 Hours years ago with my last startup. So maybe we'll invite the entrepreneurs into this session, but before we get started, I think I want to kind of just set the stage. I think that as many are probably aware of the disruption that has taken place in agriculture over the past 18 months, 24 months. This is a $3 trillion sector that's been under tremendous threat through the pandemic, as we've witnessed just how fragile certain supply chains are. You know, in the United States alone, there are 18 processing plants that went down that controlled a third of the entire pork and beef supply, which caused the U.S. to enact the Defense Production Act the first time in its history. Even we look at 2020 stats, I mean, this is why we continue to be bullish on this sector. Startups in 2020 raised $26.1 billion, which is almost 34% increase in 2019. And the craziness of the SPAC market, the public markets have also been receptive to companies in this category. In the past 3 months alone, between Benson Hill, App Harvest, Ginkgo Bioworks, and in the Canadian background, our good friends at Farmer's Edge, a number of companies have started to hit the public markets. We've also seen, a big boom, as per the earlier conversation today, in just the voluntary carbon markets and how they're starting to affect U.S.-based agriculture, with companies like Nori, Indigo Ag, who are building kind of the future of regenerative platforms. So maybe if we can invite the panelists in, we'll kind of start the session. And I'll pass it to you two gentlemen. Maybe Louise, if you want to start, give a quick introduction in yourself, and then we'll pass it over to Robert.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. So I'm Louis, CEO and co-founder of Sollum Technology. Sollum is my fourth startup. I've had venture in software, telecom, AI, but I would say this time I'm proud to bring my experience and my heart in a project driven by a tech with purpose. So Sollum is actually takes inspiration from nature. We have a solution that recreate, modulate, and bonify the natural sunlight through a grid of smart LED fixtures connected to a cloud platform we call Sun as a Service, basically to enable user improve quality, productivity, and well-being. Last November, we deployed our solution on over 5 acres, creating the world's largest, the most sophisticated smart lighting deployment in a greenhouse, and which enabled to distribute for the first time ever pepper grown in winter in Canada. So happy to be here, and congratulations to my fellow cohort members.
Awesome. Robert.
Thanks, Mark. Happy to be here as well with Louis and yourself, and thanks to C100 for giving us the opportunity today. Also have to give a plug, thrilled to be the only Atlantic Canadian startup here, calling in from Halifax, so happy to represent this region.
Awesome.
Milk Movement, we provide actionable intelligence across the dairy supply chain through our cloud-based software. So what that means in practice is that we provide software to all players in the dairy supply chain to ensure that the decisions that are being made all the time are actually based on real and current data, not lagging data. So think of an ERP for an industry rather than for one organization is what we typically see. And so while Canada's our home, we're growing rapidly across the US right now with a goal of reaching 300 billion pounds of milk managed in the next 18 months from our current 300 million today.
Awesome. Okay, Louis, maybe to you, I think the controlled environment agriculture in 2020 has just been a banner year. $929 million, 170% increase year over year. We've seen kind of mega rounds into companies like Plenty, Indigo, and then, as I said earlier, App Harvest and others in the public markets. Despite the sea of red in the markets this week, the company posted their first quarterly earnings, and the company was up, I think, 18%. And we're seeing a lot of increased M&A activity. I think you're at the center of all this, and I'm curious, as you look at the major drivers in controlled agriculture, so you're seeing falling hardware costs, AI, automation advances in these controlled environments. I'm curious, how you look at where Sollum plays, how you think about tackling the market. And then I think to the previous panel, thinking of life in a post-COVID environment and how it's affected your business.
Well, first, it's good to see there's investment growing towards agriculture. Food sustainability is a fundamental challenge for us all. And when you see these investments, you got to understand, like in the next 40 years, we need to produce as much food as we did since the beginning of humanity. And for us, Sollum, we're tackling that issue by totally disrupting the approach with respect to lighting. We have that binary relationship with light. It's a switch on a wall. It may have a dimmer. But we're just bringing this much further. Lighting manufacturers are stuck in a hardware mindset. At Sollum, we are leveraging the inherent nature of LEDs that are a semiconductor to create a dynamic light solution. So our vision is to give the power to growers so that they can do what they've been doing best for decades, for generations. That's how we see us as a player with lighting, and along with the other players in the industry, we will help that agriculture revolution that is happening now. You talked about App Harvest. They just acquired Root AI. So, there's a tons of companies like that it will bring much more intelligence in the control environment agriculture. And all that, is great, is generating a lot of data insights. But now the challenge that you may have is, okay, how you can act upon these insights. And at Sollum, well, what we basically enable the missing link, which is controlling light. There are systems that control very precisely watering, airflow, temperature, nutrients. But light was the only element that was not controlled with high precision. And this is how we see ourselves tackling and changing the industry.
Awesome. Okay, Robert, to you. I think for the audience, I really kind of wanted to set the stage for dairy. This is maybe a nascent business that people don't understand kind of the scale and scope, particularly in Canada. So I'm gonna give some stats before I give you the question. I think the Canadian dairy sector contributes, I think, about almost $20 billion yearly to the Canadian GDP, between 1.4 million head of cattle, 11,000 dairy farms, and employs 43,000 Canadians. You actually sent me a really interesting report that McKinsey put out last week on the state of the dairy sector, and interesting things. Previous panels discussed 163% increase in U.S. dairy consumers shopping online. But most interestingly, I think of the executives that they surveyed in that discussion, 2% of those executives categorized them as very strong in digital analytics capabilities, and 16% of them said that they had very large data collection and optimal use of insight generation. That's obviously astonishing statistics when you look at the state of affairs in the sector. From your perspective, first of all, congratulations on you guys closing your $3.2 million round. I guess maybe let's contextualize the problem and where you guys fit in the supply chain. And I think one of the interesting metrics you have is raw milk under management. Let's maybe contextualize some of those pieces and really kind of dig into where you fit in the supply chain and the challenges and opportunities you guys seen this year.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot there to tackle. You're right. What I would say is it's sometimes easiest to actually follow 1 pound of milk or 1 liter of milk in Canada from the farm. The farm gets picked up on a milk truck we see around our highways and roads all the time, taken to a processing facility. So in Canada, AgroPure, Saputo, one of those. In the US, it could be General Mills, Danone, Kraft Heinz, right? And then from that point on, the data is actually pretty strong because it gets turned into the yogurt and the butter and et cetera that we use, and retail takes over from there often. So that data is pretty good. where the data, what we call a data desert, is actually between the farmer and the processing facility, because very few have tried to take on this challenge before. And that's where we see ourselves. And so the numbers that you mentioned, the 2% and 16, are not surprising for really two reasons, or one main reason that we see is, unlike other supply chains that have been optimized, dairy not only needs to be optimized, it needs to be digitized first. And so we actually don't know often, like when we come in with clients, they're using pen and paper to track milk routes today, right? We don't actually have the data in front of us to know where a truck is and how much milk's on that truck. So it's an uphill battle. And that's where we see ourselves, is we optimize these supply chains and then we help these organizations digitize. And so 2%, I think that's why people see there's a lot of work to do, and that's not surprising.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And so maybe to the both of you, the one big question is more around business model innovation and sales. We had a company in our portfolio called Performance Livestock Analytics that we sold to Zoetis in March. The hand-to-hand combat nature of sales, and in each of your business, the ideal customer profile might be different. You're selling to large corporates or individual farmers. One of our companies would drive around with 6 packs of beer, farm to farm, sell to farmer. There's unique ways, I think, is in the agriculture space that both of you have really kind of had to adapt your sales processes. And even the sun as a service business model, this is something that we're seeing time and time again. Everything as a service, farming, weeding, spraying, milk as a service platform. Can the both of you maybe just talk about how you guys have worked on your business model innovation and thought about the process of sales, maybe taking a playbook from other sectors or areas of how you've refined your process?
Well, if I may start, I would say very humbly, it's one of my main goals with the C100 is to improve that part. It's from the fixture side, it's the fixture that we created is now a commodity. We can manufacture thousands of them. It's being totally outsourced. Agriculture is a very traditional industry. It's a challenge. So first learning is, we rapidly had success with different type of first learning. We had a lot of success with different type of crop, but it's for a grower, it's they need to see it at scale. So that was the first thing that we had to achieve last year. So that's the large deployments, and that triggered interest and from our potential customers. But then the other element is they are very crop specific. So now it's the success we have with pepper. They are still skeptic whether it's going to work with other crops. So on that front, we need to adjust. But there's a technology revolution coming, and I think we're looking at growers that are forward thinker, that understand that their industry is changing. So that's the phase we're in, finding the people that have the right mindsets, and as we're doing it, creating. So our channel in the short term, it's about creating a footprint for our solution, and then building value with the platform, with partnership with research center and universities. We're just like shipping lights to these scientists so that they can find new things that they could not even dream before because they didn't have the means to do that type of research. And then they will be able to publish these recipes on our platform that then becomes automatically available to Sollum growers. So I think we have to see it as a journey where we're going to help that industry move towards the digital world so that they can address the challenge of productivity and variety and quality.
Yeah, and maybe Robert, we were joking last week that the two top dairy technology companies are probably within walking distance of each other. Our company, Sollum, and I remember the days that Bethany would get in the van and drive farm to farm. Can you give us a sense of how you've evolved, what's worked well, and as you close this new round of financing, how you guys have refined processes to really, either deal qualification, sales processes? What has worked well for you guys in the sector, and what are you continuing to refine on?
Yeah, I think we are a little bit more shouldn't say fortunate, but we have it a bit easier than Bethany at Soma in a way, because we don't sell at the farm level, we sell at the cooperative or the processor level. So we make we bring on one client and we get all 1,000 farms. But that being said, it has its own challenges. And I think, Louise, some of the words you use were relationships and trust and the journey. And that's what we've learned is we've tried to growth hack the sales cycle, right? It's 6 to 8 months, a good sales cycle. We've tried to throw all the latest and greatest ideas and technologies at our sales process. What we've learned is it's relationships at the end of the day. So we're trying to move this industry forward, absolutely. But our sales process is just building relationships, building trust, and bringing clients along with this journey. And that takes time. And we're less concerned about speeding that up now, and more so concerned about just building long-term processes. So we don't have it all figured out, but I'd say that's our thinking has changed in the last few months. And let's stop trying to drive down these sales cycles. Let's just try to build lifelong partnerships with these clients.
Yeah. And so maybe to the both of you, lessons learned in the past 18 months. I opened up the conversation today talking about just how fragile supply chain, both of you play at the intersection of very interesting supply chains, that sometimes as regular consumers, we have not the nuance to what goes into from dairy farm to delivery into end product, what goes into that whole process. I guess from both of your perspectives, has COVID been an accelerant, from the conversations that you've had around the urgency on the fractured supply chains and your ability to assist in that? And then I guess what challenges are you guys have arisen through this environment as you've had conversations with customers, employees? I'm just curious to think about has this been an accelerant for both your organizations, and what's the change in the narrative?
It's been in two ways. For consumer, definitely, I think, I receive and my team, we receive a lot of echo because of the nature of what we're doing that will enable to grow more locally. It's also accelerated the importance for the governments also to enable that and facilitate the adoption of new technologies. But then the real impact for us as a business with our customers, the growers, I think we're going to see it more towards next year and the following one, as these things take sometimes to get in place. At the end of the day, they understand the need, but they are the ones that are making the investments. And then it comes back to what Rob was saying. It's building relationship and trust and making sure we are there for the long term.
Yeah. Awesome.
I think for us, COVID is, I would say it's shone a light on things. So we were, quietly or maybe trying to loudly with a small audience say that dairy supply chains are fragile. They're fragile. This cannot sustain. And I'll never forget the day. It was very soon after March 2020 when Beth Ford came on MSNBC, the CEO of Land O'Lakes, and she said, "We're in trouble. Our supply chain is not ready for this. Butter's not on shelves, and we don't know how to get it there." And we were cheering in the office, yes, the highest of the high are listening. And so, I mean, if you look at our sales cycle and our pipeline now and the meetings we have all of those groups now. They're taking our calls, they're taking our meetings. And so that's a culmination of a few things, but I think finally people realize, yes, it's time, which is very nice. The other side of things is though, we are fundamentally changing these organizations, and that's tough. So it's a long journey to get there, not even to get the sale, but then to implement. So there's a lot of work to do, but I would say the success right now is that people know it has to happen.
Yeah, great answers. And one thing that maybe we haven't talked about in any of the sessions previous is talent. I'm curious, the both of you have very unique value propositions that are heavily driven by, value-based organizations. In this environment, talent. What has it been in your experience in the past year? Both of you have closed rounds. Both of you have been scaling and adding people. What has your experience been in attracting individuals to your company, and unique tactics that the both of you have taken to find good talent?
It's been quite interesting. So we doubled the team in the pandemic times, doing interviews on Zoom, and what's been interesting. I think even the people we are hiring, they are looking to work in companies that have a purpose. So I would say that's what it's tough to find the right talents, but in the space we are, we had people that are coming our way because they want to be part of a solution and something that will will have an impact.
Robert.
Yeah, I think we're fortunate now in a way that we are so virtual. We take a regional approach. So we know Atlantic Canadians are really good at development and tech. And so we have a hub here, maybe not so good at sales, just naturally what happens, right? And so now we look to Waterloo or Toronto or the Bay Area for sales talent. And we're kind of clustering our talent regionally based on what we really think is strong there. And it's working for us so far. Not a ton of ag tech and farm tech in Canada, frankly, and then east of Toronto. So we go to Minnesota for that and Minneapolis for that. And I think it's working for us. And I think it's, the virtual world allows us to do that.
Yeah, awesome. We have 2 minutes left. So 2 final questions. Both of you just recently closed rounds. Both of you have been actively pitching to customers. This to the previous panel around defensible ROI. And I'm curious from the conversation that you've had around, we always talk about TAM. How do you both think about that, and maybe just quick lessons learned as you both have gone through the fundraising process to think about, what the next evolution of your businesses look like, and distinguishable ROI and defensible moats that both of you have had to create and defend?
So for us, like, it's creating accelerate the install base, the footprint. So like, now we're rounding up a quick financing to support our working capital as we're achieving that. And once that's going to be done, for me, that would be the opportunity to step back and start to look at the best strategy to accelerate my growth. Sollum has the chance to have a big market locally. There are hundreds of hectares of greenhouses in Canada. That is my first addressable market. But I need to think how I can tackle the tens of thousands of hectares of greenhouses worldwide, and accelerate my growth. So that's my big thinking process now.
Yep, good answer, Robert.
For us, it's proving traction, and I think it's, if you've gone through Techstars or been a part of that world, it's what's your path to $1 billion, and you may see the path to 100 million, but not to $1 billion, and that was really a long, important exercise for us to do. And really that path to $1 billion for us is spreading out start to finish in the dairy supply chain. But then, so we've proven that. We've proven working with a few key players, but now it's actually end to end before we get to Series A. So how do we prove out that, yes, we have an angle at every player in the supply chain, and then we can actually prove those relationships? That's the challenge, but that's what we're trying to do.
Brilliant. Okay, final question. We have 1 minute. I've been in both of your shoes years ago. I mean, you have an amazing audience in front of you. You have peer-to-peer networking with some fantastic CEOs. What would be the biggest ask the two of you have today as you look at the audience and network within C100?
Well, I can be the Tesla of lighting. I can change things. I cannot do that alone, and that's why I'm here. I want to have people that are interested to support that. So that's my ask.
Awesome, brilliant.
Yeah, mine is like I just said, C to Series A. This is when the real work begins. We're in a smaller club, and the clubs keep getting smaller as you go. So any lessons learned, any help, former CEOs, founders, that's what I'm looking for. Just any hacks to get us there.
Awesome, sounds good. Well, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate your time, and back over to you.